Marvel Rivals and POE2 is what Overwatch and Diablo 4 should have been from jump. And mainstream publishers are big mad now that the little engines that could are giving them a run for their money. These big companies have been living through their monopolized franchises for so long, they get frightened even at the sight of a worthy competitor in their space getting notoriety. This lack of real competition has led us to this modern age of gaming mediocrity, and with Marvel Rivals, POE2, and past games like Baldur's Gate 3, the time has come for the shenanigans to correct itself. Let's analyze this further. Valley B Gaming here, please subscribe if you're digging the content. The gist of this video is to dive deep into how successful games made by smaller publishers are winning over the fans in a genuine way, while in contrast, the mainstream developers are jealously crashing out now that the greater fan base has abandoned them for a better version of their game. This short but awesome video from Fleekazoid will help us better analyze the situation going on with Marvel Rivals.
First, Rivals crashed our player count, then they crashed our earnings, and now they're biting into our fan project market. We need ideas, gentlemen. How about we make an Overwatch sequel where we lower the teams from 6 to 5, make you grind for characters, nerf the ults, and promise a PvE mode, but never deliver it full? Damn it, Johnson, we already did that, and the people loved it. What else? How about we just put actual hardcore porn into the next game, huh? Well, yank on my dick and call me Sally. You're a genius, Billy. Titty milk on me, everyone. Hey, put the claymore there. The hero shooter genre is dog shit. Just ask any Overwatch fan. In every hero shooter, the enemies are too spongy, the gunplay sucks, the characters are unbalanced, and teamwork only gets done if you have friends, so that's out the window. But if they're all equally shit, what makes one succeed above the other? The roster. In the hero shooter genre, the game with the best roster gets the most fan projects, which means the most free marketing. It's just like Frank Sherbert said in Coom Messiah, he who controls the fan projects controls the microtransactions. Did you really think this was all
Give the market what they want. I can't attest to the gameplay mechanics of hero shooters these days, but the claim in this video is that the gameplay does not matter as much as people think. Rather, it is the character models that matter to a lot of people playing hero shooters. Objectively speaking, sex sells.
Did you really think this was all about merit? Come on. Overwatch has been dominating in spite of its own shitty self for the last decade. And all they had to do was throw some cake at the dogs, look the other way, and profit. Battleborn and Overwatch are two hero shooters that came out on the same day. Have you ever even heard of Battleborn? Exactly. Don't answer. Exactly. I'm right, you're wrong. Exactly, because you never scrolled by it on the hub. When Sony tried knocking off Overwatch, they forgot the secret ingredient. They thought the king of comorbidities was gonna bring people in. And now Dawes' ginormous ass is 6 feet and 600 pounds below, keeping those worms big as hell. Whereas Paladin...
Of course, the first thing that came to mind was Concord. This will forever be the argument maker when it comes to how important character models are. The gameplay was somewhat well received. However, the entire controversy leading to a $400 million loss seems to be solely based on how the character model looks. Who's going to want to give a summer wardrobe to that? If we want to look at it deeper, it seems that mainstream publishers and their affiliates wanted to shame hero shooter consumers for being pervy, sexist, misogynistic, whatever. Then have the consumers accept that about themselves, whether true or not, and demand that they spend their hard-earned money on unpleasant-looking character models. Whereas Marvel Rivals implemented a 5-word strategy contrary to Concord's master plan. Give them what they want and rake in millions and potentially on their way to billions of dollars. Concord made their choice, which gave NetEase the precursor of what not to do. I guess we can thank Concord's $400 million lesson?
Paladin's limping along at over triple Concord's peak players 8 years after their release. And I'll give you one guess why. Good roster, fan projects, profit. As for me personally, I've never played Paladins in my life, but I've seen it. Oh boy, have I seen it, pimp. Now, will I ever play it? No. But that's only because I'd rather get car bombed in Fallujah than play another goddamn hero shooter. What I'm saying is this, bring that camera closer. All these people keep trying to make an Overwatch killer when what they need to be making is an Overwatch fan project killer, seeing as that's the whole engine behind this shit. No one understands this. No one, except for the king of knockoffs, China, Pizza, OFC, Borio, Abidas, Alibaba, Temu. They're knocking off their own knockoff websites. Everything on Wish. This shit's a home game for them. And it's not that other countries don't do it, we just don't do it as well. Because knocking something off is an art form learned over centuries. It's an art so precise that Blizzard couldn't even knock themselves off. Not only did NetEase do what Blizzard couldn't by successfully knocking off Overwatch, but they also did what Sony and $400 million couldn't by making a roster that doesn't look like they just stumbled out of a Jaguar commercial. Then you know what they did? I'll tell you what they did. They made the models, quote, more detailed so that it would be even easier for the fans to knock off those Overwatch films you like. Call it a conspiracy theory, but I do believe we're witnessing an attempt to overthrow Overwatch's reign on the nocturnal film market. This is a coup d'etat for my surrender speakers in the audience. Overwatch is getting slammed big time, and for once it's not Tracer, May, or Widowmaker taking the blow. NetEase just opened up Pandora's box, and now the Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to get 10,000 new movies. Alright, enough yapping, let's get into
It seems that Marvel Rivals 2 out-character modeled Overwatch 2. What made me choose this video in particular is that this video really focuses on the uncomfortable truth that character models is what goes viral. The character model is what transcends the game itself into, the pop culture or the FYP of a TikTok or anything like that. This clout gets people in the Marvel Rivals door, but from the few matches that I've played, it has more going for it than female character MILFs. The M in the acronym is model, of course. I appreciate the male character models because it looks cool. Thor and Punisher alone gives the game a very good, cool credibility. It seems that the Marvel license is a perfect fit for a game of this genre. The gameplay was fast and fluid and enjoyable. All in all, NetEase copied the best of Overwatch, then took it up a notch. No shady battle pass with expiration dates, no last minute feature takeaways, 5-on-5, no 6-on-6. This led former Blizzard president Mike Ybarra to call Marvel Rivals an Overwatch clone. I'm sure NetEase's feelings were extremely hurt. Alright, let's move on to Path of Exile 2, because Blizzard can't catch a break.
I wasn't going to make this video, but am now for 2 reasons. The first is this tweet right here from the Diablo 4 general manager, Rod Ferguson, which we'll analyze and attempt to explain in a moment. The second is Moana Exile's talkative try here talking about an absolutely stunning series of events that occurred on the biggest day for Path of Exile ever. I needed to document this. I needed to showcase this to everyone. And I need you to understand, this is not a video trashing Diablo 4, its players, or its developers. It is merely examining a pivotal piece and moment of ARPG history and immortalizing it here on YouTube. November 21st, 2024 shall go down in the annals of gaming legend, and it's not because D4 is bad, it's because the way Blizzard maneuvers their non-existent relationship with their closest competition, Grinding Gear Games and Path of Exile 2. So please, no need to spam D4 bad in the comments. Let's break everything down. November 21st, 2024 was the day Grinding Gear Games unveiled what Path of Exile 2 would look like in early access. They revealed its vast endgame systems like the Atlas and endgame-only pinnacle bosses like Zesht. They explored each of the 12 Ascendancy classes available upon early access launch, including the Infernalist for the Witch, which allows you to summon a demon dog and transform into Lilith. They also addressed something spicy in the most kind and articulate way possible. We'll revisit that in a bit. First, we need to note what else happened on November 21st at the exact same time as GGG Live, Diablo 4's mid-season rundown stream on its 7th season. Of note, Diablo 4 is getting the Armory in Season 7, allowing you to store builds in-game. That's pretty rad. Aside from that, there were no other large announcements, and there wasn't really supposed to be. but they chose to schedule their reveal stream to match up with the big Path of Exile 2 reveal, and here were the results by the numbers. On November 21st, Path of Exile 2 on Twitch popped off. The category peaked at 475,351 viewers, with 711 total channels streaming the reveal. This is absolutely massive. Even my live stream was crazy on Twitch. These numbers are amazing for me without raids.
From what I read, some people were disappointed in Diablo's 4 new season, but people still enjoyed the game. I think the shift away from Diablo 4 started when POE2 reveal gathered a big crowd because of how much people loved the original PoE. With that said, the PoE2 reveal was so well received, the game itself broke the internet, gaining massive views wherever PoE2 content was posted. This made everyone look at Diablo 4 or turn back at Diablo 4 like, look at this piece of
90 max viewers, 397 average on a 5.4 hour live stream, with over 150 Twitch subs and 362 follows. On YouTube, it was even wilder. I had a peak of 1,583 people watching live on YouTube, which is just insane. Other larger creators had even more massive volume, like Darth Microtransaction, whose stream went bananas on Twitch. He had 21,382 max viewers and 58,517 unique viewers. Now, let's look at Diablo 4 on Twitch to compare. Again, by the numbers. On that day, their peak viewership was 23,217. That's pretty good for a mid-season stream and a preview of Season 7. However, what I think is more interesting is the larger view, as I think this feeds into the tweet we'll discuss in about 30 seconds. Diablo 4 viewership peaked on May 31st, 2023, with 941,488 viewers on Twitch. Almost immediately, it trails off and has never recovered at all.
As a new game on the block, it's worth asking how PoE2 early access sucked the life out of Diablo 4's popularity. The best way to put it is, it takes seeing something better to notice what you aren't getting. In simpler terms, the grass is greener. Don't apply this with your love life, that's called cheating, so chill out. But in this world of consumerism, disloyalty is your only bargaining chip that drives competition, which in this case is to provide you with the best ARPG experience.
Obviously, Diablo 4 is flailing. Blizzard is somehow left stunned about Path of Exile 2's popularity, and here is our only other exhibit of this truth. The tweet by the Senior Vice President and General Manager of all things Diablo at Blizzard. Feels like the genre of ARPG, in quotations, is starting to mean a lot of different things. Much like, in quotations, Souls-like, and, in quotations, roguelike. I wonder if we could normalize, in quotations, Diablo-like, for ARPGs that follow the Diablo formula. You don't need to go check yourself. It's real. It's verified. It's a certified fresh and hot take from the leader of Diablo and Diablo 4. Breathe that in. I'm not too sure how to honestly communicate how wild this is. My perception is that Rod either lives in a bubble or was aching for some fire to fly his way to get some engagement. You'd imagine after your biggest competition showcases something incredible, concepts made reality, that WoW haters, lovers, and people not even interested in Path of Exile 2, that you'd take a step back and say, I bet we could learn from that. Instead, Rod decided to retreat into this tweet. He stuck his head in the sand like an ostrich and started to scream. Let me just read it one more time. Feels like the genre of ARPG is starting to mean a lot of different things. Much like Souls-like and roguelike, I wonder if we could normalize Diablo-like for ARPGs that follow the Diablo formula. The crazy thing is, the dude is right. The genre does mean many different things, and Diablo's biggest competitors are doing something incredible and bold, but instead of giving them a kind bow or not saying anything, Rod went out and seriously pitched other games be implicitly named after the series he currently oversees, and if they stray too far, then they cannot be compared to his precious Diablo. This is hilarious, and what so many people have said for years in a way about Diablo 4 and Path of Exile. But now the dude in charge is saying it too in a thinly veiled manner, and it's the only thing he'll ever say about Path of Exile and grinding gear games.
I'm sure you heard of the term gatekeepers. The little guy tries to move up the ladder. On the way up, the little man meets someone who have already traveled the roads he once traveled, climbed the ladders they climbed. Let's call this someone the bigger man. The bigger man is faced with one of two choices. He can welcome the little man into his space as a nod of respect for getting this far, or the bigger man can be a gatekeeper because he thinks he's the only one that belong where he is. We know that in this case of the ARPG ladder, Blizzard, represented by Rob Ferguson, is a gatekeeper. And the real question is, why gatekeep when you are the well-known industry leader? You are the Kellogg's, the Nabisco, the Coca-Cola, Vaseline, Q-Tip, you name it. But the why is really simple when you understand the objective definition and or purpose of a gatekeeper, which is to protect your environment from confrontation altogether.
He's trying to say Path of Exile 2 isn't a Diablo-like anymore, so it cannot be compared to Diablo 4, and people should stop trying to match up the two, which is just absolutely massive cope. What's even crazier is the term Diablo-like has been around forever, since the days of Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, and it's how Grinding Your Games described their own game. They said it was a spiritual successor to Diablo 2 way back in 2010 and onward. They recognized the genius there. They captured it and they built on it, and now they've created a darn good sequel to their first game, putting all the care, love, and effort into it that they needed to. Rod Ferguson is scared. He is threatened, so he's lashing out. I've dealt with this in creating content on YouTube and in my workplace. It's plain to see. Grinding Gear Games has made something tremendous with Path of Exile 2. It has Blizzard shivering, and the game isn't even out yet. You know what this reminds me of? All the game developers coming out and saying to not expect games in line with the quality of Baldur's Gate 3 after its tremendous success on release. BG3 was an anomaly, a standard other devs shouldn't be held to. That was a hilarious line of logic, and Rod seems to be going down the same path and sniffing the same copium. What's even juicier is that Grinding Your Games acknowledged this issue in the ARPG genre, that the ARPG genre has problems with endgame content delivery and iterating on systems, and they decided to refocus their efforts on doing exactly that for their huge launch. Something that they didn't do with Path of Exile 1, Diablo 4 hasn't done, and Last Epoch didn't do either. They recognized this and decided to act instead of just complaining. Immediately as he saw the genius Path of Exile 2 presentation, he knew what could potentially happen. If Grinding Your Games succeed in their goal, crafting a game just as deep as Path of Exile 1, with a far better onboarding system, with clear explanations of crafting, skills, the campaign, endgame, and everything else, Diablo 4 is cooked, and Rod, thereby, is also cooked.
Rob and his team at Blizzard wants to avoid the competition at all costs, because the truth is, Blizzard was never ready for competition. I can take it further and say that many of these mainstream companies are not conditioned for real competition against games who desire to take their place. This explains why Rob's tweet during the live reveal of POE2 is not a surprise. Capitalism has finally caught up to them, and the market is now deciding which game is worth their time and money. Many publishers are resting on their laurels simply because they have no competition. I have one more bonus game for you. Let's end talking about mediocre developers crying foul when Baldur's Gate 3 came out with a little to no bugs at launch, full game, readily available with no sneaky DLC. You bought the game, you play the game, nothing more, nothing less.
Baldur's Gate 3 is taking the internet by storm. At its peak, a whopping 800,000 plus concurrent players were playing this weekend, catapulting it to the number 8 most played of all time spot. The gaming community has sung its praises, and it's incredibly refreshing to play a feature-complete game of this caliber.
Isn't it so weird to hear that word? Like, every time that I hear feature complete, it's like unlocking a core memory that is from like 2001.
On day one. But AAA game developers want you to know
it's like
that this
like
is
a forgotten time.
rockstar level nonsense for scope, that it's foolhardy to set expectations higher, and Baldur's Gate 3 should not be used as a raised standard to RPGs going forward. Why was the first response to defend the current state of AAA gaming as opposed to saying,
because they're working in AAA gaming and they are making the shit games that people don't like. So whenever somebody makes a shit game, makes a game that people do like, they get defensive because whenever you compare it to their game looks bad. That's why. It's pretty simple, really.
hey, maybe we can learn a thing or two from Baldur's Gate 3 and make our game better for our customers.
That's not the goal. It's not the goal is to make the game better for the customer. It's to make the game better for the shareholder. Now, sometimes those goals align, for sure. But let's not forget that there's a 1 and a 2. And gamers are the 2.
This all kicked off way back on July 8th, a lifetime ago by internet standards, I know, when a writer and BAFTA nominee, Xavier Nelson, took to Twitter to express...
By the way, this guy, I feel like a lot of what he said wasn't entirely wrong, and it was mainly a criticism of the way that AAA gaming is not willing to take risks on things. Like, I actually think that almost everything this dude said, like, I went through every tweet, every video he did. He was right. It's just that it was expressed in a way, especially whenever it's expressed without context, and given the context of, like, everything else he said, people can pick out that line and be like, like, what the fuck? I actually agree with some stuff he said. Yeah, he was right with a lot of stuff.
Concerns about Baldur's Gate 3, namely that fans would use Baldur's Gate 3 to apply criticism or a raised standard to RPGs going forward. My rebuttal is, why shouldn't customers have raised standards? Taking it a step further...
Well, because if they have raised standards, then it will become more difficult for you to give them video games that are bad, that take less effort and cost more money.
You know, the quality standards of the gaming industry have gone downhill when you get major accolades for doing what was considered the bare minimum 30 to 35 years ago. Create a feature-complete game. Nintendo still does it to this day. I should not be the only one giving them flowers. It's funny that the first thing that comes from other devs after BG3 is, don't expect quality from us. I'm telling you, man, a lot of people in this AAA game industry has not been challenged in a long time. Look at how they are quivering at the first sight of excellence. It makes me understand why the entire gaming industry has a gatekeeping problem. A company with less money did more. BG3 had a budget of $100 million. Compare this with Red Dead's 2, $170 million masterpiece in its own right. Starfield, its budget ranged from $200 to $400 million. It's not a masterpiece, but it's meh. According to the list, just in the news article where I'm getting this information from, it's safe to assume that the average AAA cost is about $250 million to make. And BG3 made it with less than half the supposed average. If I'm trying to be fair, BG3's success was more word of mouth, whereas a good chunk of the game's budget from other AAA goes towards marketing. Some argue that the D&D name took it far. However, I don't personally believe that, because D&D is the epitome of niche. I would say it's the other way around, where BG3 brought D&D to more mainstream status. No matter how Exclavier put it, sorry if I butchered that name, puts it, he comes off as an excuse maker. Some AAA publishers have 2 to 4 times more money than Larian Studios. Hey, mainstream mediocre publishers, what did you do with that money? Do you pay people with no talent who meet a certain minority standards? Oh, don't let me go there. Do you give yourselves bonuses? You seem to know how Larian makes their magic with next to nothing. Maybe if you spent more time focusing on your games, you would be the one getting the accolades. Overall, it was noted that Exclavier had valid points, as Asmongold stated, but it's bad timing. If it was before the release of BG3, it could have come off as legitimate challenges. But saying what you said after BG3 comes off as excuses. So there you have it. Mainstream publishers are being put on notice on 3 different occasions. Just wanted to end this by encouraging gamers to continue demanding the best out of the games you invest your time and money into, and reward the games who do right by you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please subscribe for more great discussions. See you in the next video.